Hello, everybody. This is Justin Case of American Newscape, rejoining our friend Scott Dudley. Hello, Scott. Welcome back to American Newscape.
Brother Justin. It's good to be here. It's good to hear from you. Looking forward to another great show.
Well, we're looking forward to it too, Scott. So, you've got a suggestion. I think we should run with it. So, take it away, Scott.
Sure. One of the things that I've tried a lot of different things over my life to get the most out of the functioning, to get the most out of my body, to get the most out of my mind, et cetera, et cetera. And so I want to talk about kind of life hacks, things we could do to that are easy and inexpensive that we can do to kind of make everything work a lot smoother. So here's your kickoff one.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of a bed of nails?
Well, I've heard of people laying on a bed of nails.
There is a hack equivalent to a bed of nails. It's called an acupressure mat. And so it's this little flat mat that goes basically from your lower back to your neck. And it is done with plastic sharp spines. And they're sharp enough that if you stepped on them in the dark, you'd be putting claw marks in the ceiling.
Wow.
So
Sounds.
they are super sharp. But when you put your weight on them and spread it out, it's a lot different. So you don't get like one point cutting you. It's like they're all just kind of pushing on you.
Wow.
So here's what the acupressure mat does. You use it for 20, 30 minutes in the evening. And it does two things. It releases endomorphins into your body, and that raises your pain threshold. But it also releases oxytocin in your body, which is the hugging, the chemical that moms get when they get brand new babies. And so these two chemicals together really help sleep. So your sleep onset gets a lot easier. You sleep a lot better. And then on the long run, you're basically practicing and testing your pain response. So you're building your body's ability to release pain relieving chemicals in response to pain by doing a little bit every day. So it's like doing push-ups. You get stronger biceps. So you lay down on this acupressure mat every night, and over time, your ability to withstand pain, to not be bothered by pain, it grows and grows. And I don't know about you, but pain's one of those things that just never seems to like go away. It just adds layers.
Well, you raised an interesting point about endorphins helping us tolerate that. One thing I've noticed in getting older, having been an athlete, I was very adept at ignoring pain or not accepting pain. But now that I'm not an athlete anymore, that is not so easy.
Yeah, I was one of those kids that was, my mom would always say, "What happened to you?" when I walked in the door and I was like dripping blood off of my elbow or whatever. And I was one of those kids that said, "Oh, I don't know."
Yeah, exactly.
And there's an advantage and disadvantage to that, obviously, because if you keep going when something's hurt, you can do more damage to it. And so that high pain threshold is not necessarily a good thing.
Well, and I'm a testament to that I should have stopped because having been a weightlifter, the mind is trying to convince you to quit being so stupid by lifting weights that you don't require additional strength in your life for, and it'll actually send out signals of pain. So they're false signals. Your mind is trying to tell you that you are hurt and you need to stop. And as a weightlifter, you need to ignore those signals and keep lifting. But sadly, when you eventually do get hurt, you're not smart enough to stop.
Yeah, you've already trained yourself to ignore it.
Yeah, exactly. So the endorphins thing is fascinating to me, Scott. Do do we start we have a diminished supply of endorphins as we age?
I haven't seen that in research, so we're not more. Pain doesn't affect us more dramatically. I would say the reverse is probably true, that we have more aches and pains as we get older. And so the endorphins may remain constant, but now you've got all these additional, this hurts, that hurts, it's cold, it's going to rain, whatever the weather is that makes you hurt.
Yeah. Well, and it and I do believe a lot of that is a mindset for a lot of people. And I do try and put pain to bed, so to speak, and try and not limp if I don't have to, because that can create other issues. But this bed of nails, a mat of acupressure, let's call it a mat of
Yeah,
acupressure,
yeah,
and you're utilizing it and you are receiving benefits from it. That's kind of fascinating.
yeah. I kind of lucked into the thing. Somebody mentioned it about probably about 15 years ago, and back then it was about $20 on Amazon, and probably still is.
No
So I
problem.
got one and started using it, and automatically, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, this works for me. I've actually fallen asleep on it.
Wow. Wow. I remember trying acupressure shoes, which were actually shoes with plastic spikes in them that you were supposed to almost sandals. And
Yeah,
I could not convince myself that they were comfortable or they were doing me any good walking around in them. So that was probably my mindset at that time.
having raised a bunch of kids, and all of them playing with Legos at one stretch or another of their lives, I'm done with stepping on sharp objects.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost makes you wonder if the inventor of Legos didn't have some psychotic purpose in the design of those toys. I wonder if he had a problem with his parents or she had a problem with her parents when she developed them.
Well, I'd like to thank them because they came up with a really good rule. I have hardly any rules when I was raising kids, but I had a rule where if you leave Legos in any of the common areas of the house, they're trash. And when I made that rule, it was instantly understood that Dad was serious, and so it never really reoccurred.
Well, that's good, Scott, and that was very bright of you, as always. So, all right, give us another life hack before we get off on a
All right,
Lego tangent.
I've got a good one. Inversion. Have you ever seen so back in the day, inversion tables used to be fairly expensive. And because they showed some promise, because people showed some real benefits to that, the price really came down. And so, me being the generous and kind and loving husband that I am, I bought one for my wife for Christmas, right?
All right.
Sweetheart, I got this. It's good for your back. It's good for your every. And she's like, I'm not getting on that thing upside down. And I said, no, I'll put it together, and which is no guarantee of anything.
Right.
And then I'll do it, and I'll go upside down, and if it can hold my weight, then it can hold yours. And so that's the way the story went. She was never convinced, and I started inverting every day. Inversion's not, if yoga classes or whatever, they talk about the value of going into headstands. Inversion's like a headstand, except you're not putting any pressure on your neck and shoulders.
Well,
So you,
you're actually stretching your spine as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So there's a whole bunch of little things that happen when you invert. So you get the spine stretched, and that's really nice. Your hips and your hamstrings and your quads all stretch because they're getting pulled down, right? Um, I've found it really good for sinuses. So if I'm upside down for 20, 30 minutes, and then I flip back up, my sinus is drained like right now, and then I can breathe really freely. I can breathe really well, and I think it's probably happening in my lymphatic system as well. So all of the lymph nodes, all of the fluids there are being able to drain out and clear. And then when you stand back up, everything resettles itself.
Well, yeah, almost re-energized, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, very much so.
I was having been an athlete and having some compression issues hanging from my arms as if you were doing a pull-up would dramatically benefit my spine and back and actually pull vertebrae out of, let's call them locked. That's why you go to the chiropractor to have them manipulate you. When you take your life in your hands and you let a chiropractor throw your body in directions that it wasn't necessarily designed, that allows you to do that for yourself. And I never had the courage or desire to try inversion because I'm kind of at that weight limit. And the thought of being upside down didn't sound exciting to me.
Well, the good news is you don't get stuck. Once you figure out exactly how to get yourself uninverted, you don't have to call to the next room for somebody to come and assist you to get out of the thing.
I'm inverted and I can't get up. Well, that's good. That's good.
Right?
So, how much inversion do you do?
I do it pretty much on a daily basis, and kind of hang there for 10-15 minutes. Let my shoulders go really loose. So I'll do some shoulder movements while I'm doing it because that reverse gravity is really nice for. It just puts all of your joints in a whole different alignment. So when you're using your muscles, if you're just stretching and moving, they're in a different gravity position.
Now, your wife is seeing you benefit from it. Do you have any hope that she may try it one day?
No.
No, 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 no.
You line up a buffet table of good things for people, and they pick and choose the things that they want. But if it's, they're not a big fan of Brussels sprouts, then they're probably never going to eat the Brussels sprouts.
Well, when I went to a buffet or a potluck, I always wanted to know who made what because some people are actually gifted no matter what they make.
Oh,
It's
that's true.
delicious.
I'm an omnivore, so unless it's something that one of my 3 or 4 foods that I do not like, I'll try it and see what happens.
Okay, Scott. Well, you must have another life hack for us. Now, you got us upside down. You got us laying on plastic spikes.
Now, here's one that's out and easy in public. You don't have to buy anything, um, and that relates to phones and TVs and other types of electronic devices. So all of these devices emit light, right? That's how you see your screen.
Right.
And so they're emitting photons, they're emitting electrons of light that go in through your eyes, they hit the back of your brain, et cetera, et cetera. The wavelength of those lights is important because certain wavelengths of lights tell your brain different things. And in this case, what we're talking about mostly is blue light. Blue light is really predominant in electronic devices. It's very strong. And what it does is it gives your brain the message that it's time to wake up. Blue light is the light of dawn, it's the light of the morning. And so when your brain sees blue light, it wakes up. Now, if you're checking your text messages or on social media at 10:30 at night and you haven't hacked anything, you've got a problem because you're telling your brain to stay up. You're telling your brain to wake up and get going.
Right.
So the hack is there's 2 hacks. The easiest hack is this. Once the sun goes down, put your electronic devices away. Don't put them near you. Don't put them notification side up. Just put them down, put them away, go on, read a book, watch a little TV, something. Um, but don't stimulate your eyes with that blue light. That would be the easiest, most effective hack. The second hack that you can do is you can go into settings in almost all devices nowadays and find an orange light setting. Orange light, as opposed to blue light, is the light of sundown. And it's the light that tells your body to start beginning to unwind itself, relax itself, and get ready to go to sleep. So you can find these orange filters in your settings or inexpensive apps, and just time them to go on at 6:30 in the evening,
Wow.
and then last until 6:30 in the morning.
Wow, that's a fascinating idea, Scott. And, I've used for years and years and years, and because I'm predominantly on the computer all day working, I've used what they call blue blocking glasses. And I thought it was kind of a gimmick to begin with, but I noticed that I knew that my eyes did much better after utilizing them all day. And they actually have an old man hack within them because they're actually reading glasses as well.
Absolutely. And those will definitely help too. But if you use the blue blockers and put on the orange light thing, you'll get the best of both worlds, and it's super easy to do.
Well, I want to try that orange on my phone because I don't require true color there, and there's no reason why it can't be on all day. I don't need to be picking up that radiation or staring into it. And I try and put my phone to bed at least 3 hours before I go to bed.
Yeah, that's fair.
So no, that's a great idea. And that orange setting. So if I go into my phone settings, if I bet in my monitor settings, it has it as well.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. I think they're almost all in the internal settings now, and if not, there's an app that you can just lay over the top of everything.
Well, that's cool. You got another secret hack? Now that last hack was pretty exciting. It didn't require pain or inversion.
Or money. So I've got a hack for you, but this one is courtesy of 99-year-old Eva Marie Saint, the actress.
Okay.
You may have seen her with Frank Sinatra when he was playing that addict. She was in North by Northwest with Cary Grant. She was one of the women in movie land that Warren Beatty scorned and mistreated. So she's been around for a long time. She's 99 years old now. And they asked her kind of growing up being, she grew up through all the cigarette smoking. She grew up through all the other kinds of things in Hollywood. And they said, well, how'd you make it to 99? And she said, the thing is every day you've got to walk for an hour. And if you walk for 1 hour every day,
Scott, I lost your camera. Well, there you're coming back. Scott? Scott, are you coming back?
I'm here. Can you?
Yeah. Yeah, you must have lost your internet there for a couple seconds.
We, yeah, no, as it turns out, when call goes through it, it decides that it's taking over the phone.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway,
So,
so Eva Marie Saint, 99 years old, and they ask her the secret of her longevity and her relatively good health. By the way, it's not like she's 99 and infirm in any way. She's still vital. She's still walking around and smart and everything. So she said, walk for an hour every day.
wow. Well, that's a wonderful luxury, and I agree with her. I use motion and movement, whether it's up and down the stairs or in and outside, to help clear my mind and get away from the mundane.
Now, some of us don't have the wheels to do that. That may be part of the problem, right?
Well, it is, but I think you can find that same benefit in motion. And even if you're wheelchair bound, you certainly have motion and moving and arm movements and things like that. I think a lot of it is just taking the time, set aside the time for yourself to actually do something out of the norm.
I think, well, and then making it the norm, right? And making saying this is the time that I'm going to have for this type of activity, and
Right.
and like she's suggesting, it doesn't have to be backbreakingly hard or sweating yourself to death, or it can be fairly gentle as long as there's a little bit of a time factor to it and it's consistent.
Right, right, right. When back in the day in business, I would jump in my car to get away from the office for a while. And that was a luxury for me where the phone wouldn't ring and things like that. And lo and behold, as soon as the cell phones came out, guess who they handed the cell phone to?
Yeah. First thing I learned on the cell phone was how to turn off the sound and notifications.
Yeah, well, I do certainly do that now, but for that reason, I certainly don't love my cell phone. I don't like being tied to it.
I worked for the county for over 30 years, and the last 20 of those, at least, I was a break walker. So, in theory, you get a 15-minute break in the morning and a 15-minute break in the afternoon. And I would jealously guard that time and fill it with walking
Right,
and not think about work and not walk with my phone and be talking to people or looking at stuff. Just walk.
right, right. Well, and that was a luxury too, and it's amazing how others can perceive us as so important that they need to communicate with us in an instant. And in most instances, they do not need to communicate with us. And there is time for us to react.
Well, and for myself, having grown up prior to cell phones, I can always just put myself back into that framework where if I wasn't next to a phone, would this really be that important? And the answer typically is no.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And and I think we're all guilty of finding ourselves too self-important at times. And that's another hack, Scott, is to have a better perspective on why we need to be available to the world 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, there's balances there. I can remember I worked in a county building that shall not be named, and I swear to goodness that this thing was sheathed in copper because there's no signal went between that place and the rest of the universe. And so I would walk out of that building and get my phone would start going like a pinball machine. It would go bam, 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 and it would be the director, and it would be my boss, and it would be all sorts of like critical end of the, like, oh my goodness, you need to deal with this immediately kind of things. And that got pretty old after a while. I had to do some kind of coping things to tell myself that this wasn't catastrophically bad.
Right. It's not we have to sink the Bismarck because the world depends on us. And it's easy to fall into that trap.
Well, and once I got past my anxiety, it really turned into a very good, legitimate reason why I didn't answer your phone call.
Well,
I'm working in a building that doesn't let calls go through. I'm terribly sorry.
well, I've always believed you have to treat others how to treat you as well. And others, we need to respect people's time.
I think so too. Well, and that means not engaging them if they don't really need to be engaged, or when you do engage them, giving them like a decision point or what you need out of them very clearly, which means you've done the thinking ahead of time.
Well, I'll share a personal story. A very close friend of mine was the contracts administrator for the city of Phoenix. And he was a swashbuckling type of guy. You had to take him with a grain of salt. And he and I become very close friends, and we were out to lunch. And the phone rang, and he swore. And I said, "Well, what was that?" He said it was assistant city manager. They were testing an elevator in a new building, which included a dead drop. So they dropped the elevator like 15 stories to make sure that the emergency stops work at the bottom. I said, "Why is he telling you that?" "Well, there were three workmen inside the elevator when they decided to drop it." And I said, "Oh my gosh, how stupid are they?" He goes, "Well, there's nothing I can do. I'll finish lunch." So his pager started going off, and he got another call. This was from the second tier city manager. And if you can imagine how powerful that person would be in a community the size of Phoenix, and the sky was falling. I mean, Chicken Little was upon us. And it didn't phase my friend, who was a two-tour Vietnam Marine vet, that they asked to go home because he seemed to be enjoying being in Vietnam, to doing his job. And finally, he decided, he goes, "Well, I've got to." He gobbled down his lunch. He got in his got in his car, and headed back to the Phoenix offices, which was about a 20-minute drive. And he called me when he got there. He said, I got to tell you this. He said, my pager kept going off. And he said, after the fourth time it went off, I threw it out the window of my car on the freeway. And I enjoyed watching it shatter into 100 pieces. And as soon as he got out of his car, since they knew him, they handed him a new pager. And the end of the story was the sky was not falling as much as they perceived. The three people in the elevator were seriously hurt, but none of them perished and could have perished because people weren't doing their jobs.
Yeah, there's a liability risk there, but I can't unfall the elevator. It's already fallen.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if it's a medical emergency, then I'm not 911.
No, I would have said, I would have called Scott. Scott, I need you to talk to these poor three workmen that are in the hospital now that may never be able to trust anybody for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, the possibility of long-term trauma. Yeah, I wouldn't be hopping onto an elevator anytime soon.
So, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure they were devout stairmen from there on. But it's a perception of how some people handle those situations and others don't. And I think we can train ourselves to handle them better. And I would encourage people to look for those coping skills, as you found coping skills.
Well, like that second-tier manager could have said, here's where we're at and here are the decisions and choices we need to make, and then that would have been a valid kind of a page, because now you're putting it into somebody's lap where there's something they can do about it, whereas the sky is falling is kind of just way too big and way too broad.
Well, that was a time, Scott, that incident commanders, which I actually became one, appointed by this gentleman, and he was indeed a top tier incident commander for the city of Phoenix. But there again, he was 30 minutes away, and 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 I noticed that once they credentialed you there, people of great importance would just thoroughly depend on you because that took all decision making off of their plate. And he had found himself there too. And that was probably one of the commonalities that we had, that we were better suited to cope with those incidents.
Yeah, give it to me and I'll sort it out slowly, analytically, and ultimately at the end of the day, I'm going to come back with a recommendation. So this is going to be that's my job.
Right. Okay, Scott, give us one more. Give us one more. Give us one more magic life hack as I get off of this inverted bed of nails you have me on.
Is your head turning red yet? You finding a little pounding in your temple?
No,
That's normal.
do you have burning in your ears, Scott?
With the inversion thing, it's funny because when you first do it, the first couple of times, you'll get that kind of stuff. After a while, you won't get anything, and that's kind of saying that your body's already learned how to cope with the upside downness. Okay, final hack.
Okay.
This one's going to be a little bit philosophical.
Uh-oh.
Don't fight the fight you had yesterday. So we're always kind of reacting and doing things based on the problem we experienced yesterday. And so we're always kind of relitigating things. It's really important to kind of get ready for the next fight, get ready for the next personal struggle, get ready for the next thing in your life, and not worry as much about going backwards and fighting the fight you should have fought last week, 6 months ago, a year ago, whenever that thing happened. Now you're wasting time just relitigating and trying to kind of think of a way to deal with something that's already happened.
Well, you're exactly right. You can't turn back time. And harboring those resentments and feelings and anxieties are counterproductive for you moving forward, which everybody should be focusing on.
Because once it's gone by, it's in your rearview mirror. It's not even part of real anymore. It's like it's just a memory.
Well, yeah, it's a foundation for you to do better.
So if you're stuck on the inverter machine and that happens every day, then maybe that's something, maybe you are fighting today's fight today.
Yeah, you're upside down. Get right side up. Get right side up in your thought patterns, and you'll actually be in a better place. And Scott, I think those are four excellent life hacks. I don't even want to add one of my own.
Well, we'll keep it at those four then. And ultimately, if any one of those could be something that really makes a difference in somebody's lives.
Well, one of them I've got handled pretty well. One of them I won't do, and the other one I'm afraid of. But I'll tell you, that orange light thing sounds pretty intriguing.
Well, try the beta spikes. You'll be amazed.
Well, that would be the one I'm afraid of. Fear is not a good thing in grown men, but I too can conquer this. All right. All right, Scott. Thank you. Hey, everybody. This has been Justin Case and Scott bringing you American Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Remember, additional information and links are provided in this video's read more. Today is the day to subscribe to this channel. Please learn more about Scott when time permits.